Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Game of the Week. We are in week 2 of the BPS High School basketball season, and this week we're heading out to Charlestown High School for a matchup on the girls' side as the Charlestown Townies are hosting the Snowden Cougars. And we have two teams that are 0-2 to start the season, and at the end of last year these two teams were at opposite ends of the spectrum. The Snowden Cougars finished the season at 14-6 before losing in the first round of the state tournament. Meanwhile, on the other side for Charlestown, they finished the year at 7-13 and are still developing some of their players, and that's going to continue on this year as they're still trying to get some players acclimated to basketball. And of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's a shortened season and a lot of different modifications in these games. As we saw last week, we saw the Latin Academy versus Tech Boston boys games, and we saw that all players have to wear masks, referees have to wear masks, coaches have to wear masks, everybody in the gym has to wear a mask the entire time. You'll see the benches are spread out. There's not going to be a jump ball to start the game, and there won't be any inbounds passes from underneath the basket. You'll also see on free throws, if there's 2 free throws, you don't have any players in the lane to start with the first free throw. Then the second free throw, you can only have 3 players, 2 from the non-shooting team and then 1 player from the shooting team. So a lot of different modifications coming into this season. We're seeing these players still get acclimated, but we talked to the coaches leading up to this game, and they said, you know, there's a lot of different things that these players are still working out because of those modifications, including those masks. It's obviously tough to breathe with a mask when you're running around in a basketball gym, but the coaches said that they're just happy to be back on the basketball court, and I think we all concur with that statement. Coming into tonight, Snowden, as we mentioned, 0-2. They do have 2 very good players that were coming into this week, but unfortunately one of their top players, Nala Jovan, hurt her knee severely a couple of nights ago against O'Brien. She is out for the season. Certainly a big blow for the Snowden Cougars, but the person who's going to have to pick up the slack once again is going to be Nairomi Forbes. Nairomi, a very good player, excellent ball handler for the Snowden Cougars. She's also one of their top scorers. She had several games last year where she had clipped the 20-point mark. She also had a 30-point game, I believe, against Cash a season ago. So you know she can put the ball in the hoop. She's going to be one of the top performers for Snowden tonight. Meanwhile, on the other side for the Charlestown Townies, Bakasa Smith is the point guard, and she's one of their top players on the Charlestown team. She normally would play like a small forward position, more of a wing, but because of the lack of ball handling on this Charlestown team, Bakasa is going to be performing the point guard duties for Charlestown. And we'll see oftentimes when we have 2 really good players on each team, it's often the contributing players, the role players that are the ones that might decide the game depending on how they play throughout this contest. So this should be a relatively even matchup despite the records from last season, but we're looking forward to this one. It looks like Snowden is going to start off with the basketball. That's Snowden in the all dark green uniforms with the yellow trim. Charlestown in the all white uniforms with the blue and red trim. We are set to go at Charlestown High. Talked about Nairomi Forbes, the point guard to start. One of their better players, good defensive play that time by Charlestown. Coming up the seal, there was Elias Santiago. Santiago all the way to the basket, scores the hoop. So Santiago scoring for Charlestown to get things going here to start off. I'm sorry, that was Bakasa Smith who scored the layup for Charlestown. Corner 3 now on the way for Snowden, well off the mark. And good job saving it for Snowden. And they're now going to kick it back out. Another 3 ball on the way. That one around the rim and out. Snowden again getting on the offensive glass. We now have a jump ball in the middle of the paint. And that's going to go back to Charlestown as Snowden got the opening possession. So a nice hustle play that time by Ava Diaz to save the ball inbounds for Snowden. But nothing to show for it. So there's Bakasa Smith. She's the one who scored the layup to start off the ball game. As I mentioned before, she's more of a forward, but this year not a lot of ball handling on this Charlestown team, so she has to be the one that brings the ball up for the Townies. Smith stops and pops, can't hit the jumper, and a rebound comes down to Diaz for Snowden. There's Forbes now getting it to the top of the key. looks like we're going to foul on Charlestown, so that'll stay with Snowden. As I mentioned in the beginning, that's going to be a side out of bounds. They don't do out of bounds plays from underneath the hoop during the COVID protocols. So that will stay with Snowden. There's Forbes at the top of the key. As I mentioned before, good scorer for this Charlestown Cougars team. Nice feed inside. Shot is short that time by Chantel Caceres. What a nice interior post pass that time from the top of the key for the Cougars. Like I mentioned before, both these teams coming in 0-2 on the season. And you know that with this condensed season, every game means just a little bit more than in a normal basketball season. So you know these two teams are desperate for their first win of 2021. Three ball on the way for Charlestown, well off the mark, but the Townies come away with the rebound. And there comes Forbes now away with the loose ball, quick up the floor. She gets it to Caceres, and Caceres knocks down the layup, gets Snowden on the board here early in the first quarter. Tied up at 2 here with a couple of minutes gone by in the first quarter at Charlestown High School. And another turnover there by Charlestown. Here comes Forbes. She's going to take it all the way to the bucket. She gets fouled on her way to the basket, and I believe she's going to get 2 free throws. Oh, I'm sorry, they called her the ball off of Forbes. So that's going to go back to Charlestown. Looked like there was some contact there, but Bakasa Smith, long two, nothing but nylon for Bakasa. That's her second field goal of the quarter. She puts Charlestown on top 4-2. So as you can see, Bakasa Smith and Naomi Forbes, the 2 top players in this contest. Snowden trying to get the drive there, and ball wrestled away, stolen away by Charlestown. You see Smith loses it inside the paint, and BPS comes away with the steal. Excuse me, that's Caceres with the steal. Forbes all the way back down the other end, unable to hit the layup. And it's Smith going after the loose ball for Charlestown, and this time it's going to stay with Snowden. In addition to all the different modifications that these teams have had to deal with, they've also not had a lot of practice time. You can't practice as much in the gyms. The protocols call for you to not be, together as much as you normally are. So, the kinks are going to be worked out throughout the entire regular season for a lot of these basketball teams. They just haven't had a lot of practice time. That long two that time was shot by Ava Diaz, unable to hit. Now we got a double dribble on Charlestown, so that's going to go back to Snowden. You see Coach Bilodeau for Charlestown. He's in his 3rd season as the head coach of the Townies. Another shot off the mark that time for Charlestown. Not a lot of long-range shooting as there. You see Forbes coming away with the steal and the bucket for the Snowden Cougars. Ties it up at 4 here about midway through the first quarter. So now applying the 3/4 court press. Smith off the up fake. Smith to the basket, and she's going to get 2 from the charity stripe. You see why Bakasa is one of the top scorers for Charlestown. Very aggressive on the offensive end. She'll now shoot 2 free throws. And Smith unable to hit the first. There you see the COVID modifications. It almost looks like a technical free throw is being shot, but you can't have any players in the lane during the first free throw. Then in the second free throw, you can only have 3, 2 from the defending team and 1 from the shooting team. Smith 0 for 2 at the line as the rebound comes down to Santiago. Tied up at 4 here at Charlestown High School, first quarter. 3-ball blocked that time by Charlestown. Here comes Smith picking up the loose ball. Casa Smith trying to feed it inside. Pass was a little too high. That time for her teammate, Aaliyah Santiago. So that'll go back to the Cougars. Diaz now going to bring it up. They try to feed it inside to Forbes, but that was deflected by the Townies. Here comes Santiago for Charlestown. Forbes comes away with the steal. Naomi Forbes trying to go coast to coast, and they're going to call her for a double dribble. So several turnovers from both teams here to start in this first quarter. Smith trying to feed it up top to Santiago. She couldn't hang on to it. Here comes Diaz. Diaz trying for a runner. She gets it deflected. Smith comes away with a rebound. Diaz comes back with the steal. Diaz gets fouled on the block. Looks like that foul's going to be on the floor, so that'll be a side out of bounds for Snowden. One of the things Coach Pham mentioned when we were talking to her earlier in the week is Diaz airballs a three, is that the players are still getting used to playing with the mask on. You know, you're running around a lot in the gym, you're certainly out of breath at certain points, and with a mask on, it's tough to breathe, as we've all been used to, but they're being safe by wearing it. The other thing is that some of the players just aren't in shape because they haven't been able to play as much. So you couple that with the mask, it's tough to breathe sometimes out there on the floor. Diaz unable to hit the layup. Rebound by Ava Diaz that time. Costa Smith gets her shot blocked at the top of the key. Get it out to Caceres. Caceres can't score off the window, and the rebound comes down to Charlestown. That's going to be a double dribble on the Townies. So we're going to keep it. We're going to give it back to Snowden here in the first quarter. Good kick to the corner. Forbes off the up fake. Tries a runner. Can't get it off the back iron. Rebound comes down to Caceres. Forbes looking for an opening. Can't hit it off the window. Put back. No good there for Snowden. Tough rebound inside, that time by Santiago. Here comes Santiago trying to go coast to coast. And she scores off the window. So Santiago getting the rebound and going the distance for the layup. Charlestown on top 6-4 here in the first quarter. Can't quite tell if that's the end of the first quarter. We cannot see the clock from where we are, folks. We only have one camera at the gym. So I don't believe it's the end of the first quarter just yet. Coming to you from Charlestown High School. It's week 2 of the BPS High School Basketball season. We started off last week with the Latin Academy versus Tech Boston boys game at Latin Academy. Now happy to bring you a girls game from Charlestown High. Snowden trailing Charlestown 6-4. And folks, if you want to follow us on social media, one of the first things you can do, you can go to our Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/GameOfTheWeekBoston for all the different games we're going to be covering. All the games that we do cover, we're going to post afterwards on YouTube. We'll put the links up there on our Facebook page, so make sure you check that out if you want to watch some games. You can also go to our website. Go to www.boston.gov/cable, and you can scroll down to the bottom of the page. There's a Game of the Week section. You click on that. It brings you to our video library. And that's where you can select games from this season, last season. They're all going to be up there in our video library if you want to check those out after the fact. And finally, you can follow us on Twitter at Boston City TV. If you want to tweet at us, use the hashtag BostonGOW. Coming out of the timeout. Snowden down by 2. Snowden made a change here as Caceres is now seems to be bringing it up for Snowden. They're trying to free Forbes up a little bit. That jumper off the mark. Rebound comes down to Adriana Rosario. Santiago throws it into the backcourt, so that's going to go back to Snowden. Both teams struggling offensively. They've gotten some open looks, but not a lot in the scoring department. Jumper that time, nothing but net for Snowden. Looked like it was Ava Diaz, I believe, knocking down the long two. Tied up at 6. Diaz fighting for the rebound inside, and Forbes comes away with it for Snowden. Here comes Caceres back down the other end. Diaz trying for a 3 this time. She's off the mark. Rebound inside, and that's going to be a jump ball. That's going to stay with Snowden. Good job by Deanna Dunbar-Lee fighting after that rebound on the offensive end. 3 ball around the rim and good that time from Chantel Caceres. So now Snowden knocking down a couple of outside shots from the perimeter. Gives the Cougars a 3-point lead here towards the end of the first quarter. 3 from way downtown from Santiago, no good, and that's going to do it for the first quarter here at Charlestown High. After one at Snowden on top of Charlestown, 9-6. Snowden finishes the first quarter with a 5-0 run to take a 3-point lead. And really, it was Charlestown that controlled that first quarter mostly, but then Snowden had a couple of nice possessions to finish off the quarter. They knocked down a couple of outside shots. So 9-6 lead for the Snowden Cougars. And we'll see which teams can adjust to start the second quarter. But Snowden had a tough time making layups really in that first quarter. Several players, including their best player, Naomi Forbes, missing a couple of layups there. Folks, we're at Charlestown High School for this Week 2 matchup between the Snowden Cougars and the Charlestown Townies. As I mentioned, both teams 0-2 on the season. So both teams desperate for their first win of the year. And we'll see what kind of adjustments these teams can make coming out for the second quarter. As we mentioned before, Snowden without one of their top players, Nala Jovan, who unfortunately severely hurt her knee a couple of nights ago against O'Brien. So Snowden missing one of their top players, but you see Naomi Forbes and a couple other players for Snowden stepping up for this Snowden team. Coming out for the second quarter, Snowden on top by 3. After a relatively low-scoring first quarter. As I mentioned before, the schedule's been so condensed. Each team is really supposed to have at least 2 games per week. Then we had a snowstorm that started on Monday night, spilled over into Tuesday, so a lot of games got moved around. A lot of teams had to play games on Wednesday and Thursday night. So teams just don't have a lot of practice time right now because of the condensed schedule and because of the amount of practice time that's actually allowed. But again, a lot of these teams just appreciative that they can actually play basketball right now. Looks like we got a foul on the perimeter. I believe that's on Chantel Caceres. You see Bacasa Smith, she had 4 points in the first quarter. Santiago tries a runner. Well off the mark that time. Good rebound on the inside from Deanna Dunbar-Lee. Dunbar-Lee just a sophomore for the Snowden team. They try to feed it inside. That was knocked out of bounds. It's going to stay with the Snowden Cougars. Good swing there for Snowden. Corner three, well off the mark. Casa Smith coming away with a rebound for Charlestown. Santiago firing up a three, well off the mark that time. Ball goes out of bounds. That'll go back to Snowden. So besides those two perimeter shots from Snowden, teams struggling so far trying to hit any shots from the perimeter. Good swing of the basketball. Forbes looking for an opening. She fires up a three. Short rims it. Good rebound there for Snowden, as that was Zanya Johnson coming away with it. Forbes now towards the basket, and I believe she's going to get 2 free throws. Saw Forbes in that first quarter forcing the action a little bit. This time she's able to get the call, and she'll now get 2 from the stripe. Nairobi unable to hit the first. Nairobi had some big scoring outputs last season against East Boston. She had 28 points a year ago. Against Cass, she had that 30-point game that we referenced at the beginning of the broadcast. And against Boston English, she had a 22-point game. So certainly she's able to fill up the stat sheet, but no luck at the charity stripe. 0 for 2 from the free throw line is Nairobi Forbes. So neither team able to hit a free throw in the early going. Santiago looking inside, gets the ball swiped away, stolen away that time by Sakaris. Throws it out to Forbes. Forbes gets tied up inside the paint. We got another jump ball, and I believe that's going to go back to Charlestown. Excellent hustle that time by the Townies. That was Trinity Williams tying up Forbes inside. No, it's going to stay with Snowden, excuse me. Cougars hang on to possession, but still a nice play by Charlestown, as that could have been a fast break. But Casa Smith with the block. Ball is still in play, and Smith trying to wrestle away the loose ball, and I believe that's a jump ball again, and that one will go back to Charlestown. So excellent defensive play that time by Smith. She blocked the shot and then went after the loose ball to get a jump ball. So another turnover that time by Snowden. Well, these teams still stuck on that 9-6 score that we started off the quarter with. Forbes trying to get it to the top of the key. It was poked away. Sakaris fires up a three and buries it. That's Sakaris' second three of the night. She now leads all scorers with 8 points. And Snowden now on top by 6, 12-6. And so far they're on an 8-0 run, starting off towards the end of the first quarter. And it looks like Charlestown wants a timeout here about midway through the second quarter. Coach Bilodeau doesn't really like what he sees out there. Charlestown's offense kind of stagnant, and when they do get an open shot, it's not necessarily a good one. So Charlestown had a tough time offensively. As there you see Coach Bilodeau talking to his team. Well, for Snowden, they're starting to hit some shots from the outside, which has certainly helped their 8-0 run here in the second quarter. As we mentioned, folks, coming to you from Charlestown High School in week 2 of the BPS basketball season. And folks, if you want to follow us on social media for all these Game of the Week games, you can certainly start off by going to Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Game of the Week Boston. A lot of good stuff up on that site, including links to the game, updates on which games we're going to be covering. Make sure when you go to Facebook, you like us there, you follow us on Facebook. A lot of good stuff. You can also follow, or actually, you can also go to our website if you want to watch some of the previous games from this season or games from any other season. You can go to www.boston.gov/cable. Got a lot of games up on that site. You scroll down on the bottom of the page, you click on the Game of the Week tab, and that'll bring you to our video library where you can check out all the Game of the Weeks from the past few seasons. You can also follow us on Twitter at Boston City TV. And if you want to tweet at us, use the hashtag BostonGOW. We got a lot of different updates we're going to be posting out on Twitter. Whenever we schedule a game that we're going to cover for this season, we're going to post that out on Twitter, including the live link that you can watch on YouTube on Twitter. That'll all be up there. So once again, at Boston City TV, and if you want to tweet at us, use the hashtag BostonGOW. Snowden leading Charlestown 12-6 here about midway through the second quarter at Charlestown High. Charlestown actually started off the game with the lead, but it's been Snowden who just had an 8-0 run, started towards the end of the first quarter, is now spilled over into the second quarter. That's why they're on top by 6. Bakasa Smith firing up a 3, off the mark that time. Chased down by Forbes. Nairomi Forbes with her eyes on the basket, but she took an extra step, so that basket won't count. That'll go back to Charlestown. You can see the talent out of Nairomi Forbes. Very quick, excellent ball handler, gets to the rim. She's had a couple of unlucky breaks, unlucky bounces, and then a couple of double dribbles too to prevent her from scoring a little more. Bakasa Smith trying to muscle her way in there. Johnson back to Smith. She fires up a 3 around the rim and out. Offensive rebound is unable to be corralled inside that time by Adriana Rosario, so that'll go back to the Snowden Cougars. Caceres, she's had the hot hand, feeds it inside beautifully, but then it's stolen away that time by Charlestown. Here comes Bakasa Smith. Tries a runner, can't score off the backboard. Another rebound inside, that time by Deanna Dunbar-Lee. Chantel Sakaris, that time short with the jumper. Forbes trying to chase after the rebound. Good hustle by both squads, and now we get a loose ball and tie up near the sideline. And we'll see who that goes back to. I believe it's going to stay with Snowden. Let's go back to Charlestown. Janayla Jones is the one from Charlestown, number 22, that's been chasing after that loose ball so much here in the second quarter. Nice hustle that time to get the jump ball. Corner 3 this time from Santiago, well off the mark. Rebound comes down to Snowden. Here comes Forbes, trying to beat everybody down the floor. Forbes to the basket, scores the layup. That time Nairomi able to get all the way to the cup. Forbes now with 4 points, extends Snowden's lead to 8 here about midway through the second quarter. Good feed inside from Smith. Shot unable to go that time from Adriana Rosario. I think that ball got every part of the rim, but just didn't go down. I believe that's going to stay with Charlestown as it went out of bounds off of Snowden. Snowden still in the middle of a 10-0 run that started in the first quarter, has spilled over here into the second quarter. Here's the coach Phoebe Pham. I believe this is her 7th season with the Snowden Cougars. Johnson looking for an opening. Ball gets stolen away by Snowden. Here comes Forbes. Again on the fast break. Good job corralling the basketball and scoring the layup. Forbes now with 6 points for Snowden, and she extends their lead to 10. Another steal there for the Cougars. They flip it out to Forbes. Forbes looking for Caceres. Excellent pass. Results in a layup. Excellent play there by Forbes, getting Caceres to layup. Caceres now with 10 points to lead all scorers. And Snowden's lead is now up to 12. And once again, Charlestown needs to take a timeout here later on in the second quarter. You see Coach Phoebe Pham instructing Zanya Johnson. So Coach Pham knows, even though with a 12-point lead, This is such a wacky season that you never know what kind of lead is safe. She also saw her team really get back in this game and take the lead because of a couple of three-point shots. And now if Charlestown comes back and is able to knock down a couple of threes, they're right back in it. So especially with how the three-point shot has changed the game over the past decade or so, with so many young players shooting threes, taking threes, making threes, teams can come back from larger leads compared to what it used to be. So really no lead is safe in basketball, no matter what level you're at, because of the three-point shot and how it's affected the game so much over the last couple of seasons. So we'll see what kind of adjustments Charlestown can make, especially on the offensive end. They've had a lot of turnovers here in the second quarter that's led to some fast break buckets for Snowden. Coming to you from Charlestown High School here in week 2 of the BPS High School basketball season. You see Coach Bilodeau in his third year as the head coach of the Charlestown Townies girls basketball program. Of course, on the boys' side, Hugh Coleman, the head coach of the boys' team. And on the Snowden side, Paul Rogers, the head coach of the Snowden boys basketball team. The Snowden boys actually made it all the way to the state semifinals last season. Really a nice year for them. Out of the timeout, Bakasa Smith trying to squeeze it inside, was unable to get a clear look at it. Ball got knocked away. Now it's Forbes coming back with it for Snowden. Forbes trying to feed it inside to Caceres. Smith knocks it out of bounds. So that'll stay with the Snowden Cougars. Caceres, wide open look at a three, and she's unable to hit. That's going to go back to Charlestown. Another steal, that time for the Snowden Cougars. Caceres all the way to the basket, scores the layup. She now has 12 points to lead all scorers. Excellent first half here for Chantel Caceres. Smith now caught with it in the corner and almost turns it over. Santiago, excuse me, that was Mari Soto, was able to chase down the loose ball, but now it's Caceres back down the other end. Soto comes up with the block, and that's going to stay with the Snowden Cougars. That'll be side out of bounds for Snowden. Trying to feed it inside to Forbes. Forbes clears it out. Long two. Forbes unable to hit. Dunbar Lee coming up with the steal over to Forbes. Forbes can't hit the layup. Forbes now with an open look at a three, and it goes off the back iron. Charlestown struggling on the defensive side to get rebounds, and a nice pass from Dunbar Lee inside to Diaz for the easy layup. So Diaz now with 4 points for Snowden. Excellent pass that time by Deanna Dunbar Lee. Dunbar Lee just a sophomore for this Snowden team. Forbes still steals it away up to Caceres. Chantel Caceres with another layup. Caceres having an excellent first half. She now has 14 points for the Snowden Cougars. And that's going to do it for the first half here from Charlestown High School as Snowden leads Charlestown 24-6. So you saw both teams kind of go back and forth there in the first quarter, but it was really Charlestown who struggled offensively from the second quarter. From the opening jump of the second quarter, they actually weren't able to score a basket in that second quarter. So that's why Snowden leads 24-6. You saw the Cougars able to create some turnovers, turn those turnovers into fast break points there in the second quarter. That's really why they have that lead, that 24-6 lead. They've actually gone on a 20-0 run. We talked a lot about Nairomi Forbes coming into this game. She's one of their top scorers. I read off some of her scoring outputs from last season, but in this game in particular, they really keyed on her defensively. So it's really been Chantel Sakaris who's been the one that's able to score for Snowden, as she now has 14 points to lead all scorers in this one. So really an excellent job by Sakaris. Meanwhile, Forbes does have 6 points. She got a couple of steals, was able to take them in for layups. And also Ava Diaz for Snowden with 4 points. So really 3 players getting involved there for the Snowden Cougars. Meanwhile, for the Charlestown Townies, it was Bakasa Smith who got things off well for the Townies. They actually had a 6-4 lead in the first quarter, but she's been unable to score ever since, not getting a lot of open looks there in the second quarter. You also saw Aaliyah Santiago get a couple opportunities. She was able to knock down a layup in the first quarter, but none of the players from Charlestown were able to hit anything in that second quarter, so that's why they trail 24-6 right now at the half. As we mentioned, a lot of different modifications because of COVID-19 protocol. One of those also is that the halftime is a lot shorter in these games. And one thing the coaches were talking about, that normally in a high school basketball game, you have at least 8 minutes for a halftime. Most of the time it's about 10 minutes. But in these particular contests this year, they've limited the halftime to about 2 to 3 minutes. So you've got players who don't have a lot of practice time, so they're not quite as in good a shape as they normally would be. They're wearing masks, so it's a little bit harder to breathe. And then on top of that, some of these players don't have enough time at halftime to really get a rest. There's only a couple of minutes. So I think if you were able to see the game right now, or at least see the gym, you'd see that players are just going to be sitting, resting, hydrating, and not really warming up or doing anything like that, shooting around at halftime. This is just the time to rest for a lot of these players. So, of course, with everything else, a lot of different modifications here during the pandemic in 2021. But as we've been saying all along, we're all just happy that high school basketball is back in the city of Boston. As I mentioned before, Snowden and Charlestown coming in at 0-2 on the season, so both teams desperate for their first win of the year. Snowden was a state tournament team a year ago before losing in the first round. As I mentioned also, they lost one of their top players on Wednesday. Nala Jovan injured her knee. She's going to be out the rest of the season. So it's really going to be Nairomi Forbes, and we saw Chantel Sakaris really have a good first half for Snowden. But also, Deanna Dunbar-Lee doesn't have any baskets yet. She's just a sophomore power forward / center for the Snowden team, but she's made a lot of nice plays, good passes from the interior. She's got a couple of assists just from just having a post-entry pass or a pass inside the paint. She also has several rebounds for the Snowden team, so she's done an excellent job for the Snowden Cougars as well. You got to think if Snowden wants to continue what they've been doing, they got to get after it on the defensive end, continue to create turnovers. They feasted off of turnovers in that first half. That led to a lot of layups. Some of them missed, so Snowden's got to make sure they make their layups. But they were able to score a lot of layups in the first half because of the turnovers, and they can probably continue to try to knock down some shots from deep. Chantel Sakaris had 2 3-pointers in that first half. I'm sure she'll take a couple more in the second half. Coach Pham mentioned that she's one of their top outside shooters for the team this season. Meanwhile, for Charlestown, one of the things they got to do is they got to take care of the basketball. We saw all the turnovers they had in that first half that not only prevented them from getting anything offensively, but it also jump-started the fast break for Snowden. So you're not scoring any points because you're turning the ball over, and you're also helping the other team on their offensive end by giving them easier opportunities. So we saw that from Charlestown in the first half. I'm sure Coach Bilodeau is going to be talking about that at halftime for his team as well, to try to take care of the basketball a little bit better in the second half. Bakasa Smith with 2 baskets for Charlestown. One was more of a perimeter shot, one was a layup. So I think Bakasa is going to have to get a little more aggressive, drive to the hole. We also saw Aaliyah Santiago with a basket. We'll see if she can get some more open looks as well. But as we mentioned, the boys teams for these two schools also have been successful on the basketball court. We talked about Snowden last year, the boys side making it all the way to the state semifinals before losing at the TD Garden. Meanwhile, the Charlestown boys basketball team didn't make the state tournament last year, but they've sort of hovered around that 10-win mark where you need to be to make the state tournament over the last couple of seasons. It'll now be the third year. It's hard to believe, but it'll now be the third year of Hugh Coleman being the head coach at Charlestown High. He's been there for the last couple of seasons after being a longtime head coach of Brighton, winning a couple state championships at Brighton. And then even before that, he was an assistant coach at Charlestown. And before that, he played basketball at Charlestown. So a lot of deep roots of that Charlestown team. He's very happy to be there. So the two boys teams, two very good programs in the city. And now we're seeing the girls teams tonight. We'll see if they can try to pick up a few more wins on the season. But wins are still in reach, as I mentioned, during the second quarter, especially with the three-point shot and how the three-point shot has really changed the game of basketball. Even a 24-6 lead for Snowden is not going to be enough to really run away with it, because if Charlestown can knock down a couple of deep threes and knock down a couple more shots, they can certainly get right back in this game. So they're certainly not out of the woods at all as Snowden. They cannot coast for the rest of the game. It looks like we're just about ready to start the third quarter here at Charlestown High School. As Snowden will start off the third quarter with the basketball. And an 18-point lead. You see Jamila Drawn in there now for the Snowden Cougars. Dunbar Lee trying to get it to the corner to Diaz. Now back up top, Chantel Sakaris short on that three. Mikasa Smith coming away with a loose ball for Charlestown. Smith got an open layup. Unable to convert, as you saw Dunbar Lee hustle to try to contest the shot. And that'll go back to Snowden. You see in the doorway there, Avery Esdale, the Boston Public Schools athletic director. He certainly had a lot of work to do over the last couple of months. Him and Billy Sittig, along with some other folks with the Boston Public Schools athletic department and the Boston Public Schools operations, had a lot of work to get done to get these games off. But they've done a heck of a job putting a schedule together, and which has allowed a lot of these players and coaches to be able to get back in these basketball gyms. And so far, so good for Boston Public School athletics. Looks like we got a foul on Charlestown. So Dunbar Lee now at the free throw line to shoot two. And she's unable to hit the first. Players still getting used to these COVID protocols. It's now they got to get back in the lane. So now Dunbar Lee will get one more. Unable to hit the second as the rebound comes down to Johnson of Charlestown. Williams. Corner three off the mark that time for Santiago as Dunbar Lee comes away with the rebound for Snowden. Caceres inside. Diaz gets fouled as she tries to score off the window, so Diaz will now get two free throws. Diaz unable to hit the first. Both teams struggling from the free throw line. Neither team has been able to knock down a free throw so far. Diaz 0 for 2, but Dunbar Lee comes away with the rebound. Now it's Santiago who comes away with a loose ball, but she gets knocked around that time by Chantel Caceres. So Caceres commits the personal foul. The ball will go back to Charlestown Townies. Townies still looking for their first basket since the first quarter. They've struggled offensively to get some good looks. Santiago, deep three off the front iron. Ball goes out of bounds back to Snowden. If you can hear a little bit of background noise, folks, that's actually the air ducts in the air going through the gym. They want to make sure that that air conditioning is on, getting good airflow in the gymnasium to help with COVID protocols. As there you see a steal that time from Charlestown. Here comes Smith back down the other end, unable to hit the layup. Rebound comes down to Deanna Dunbar-Lee. Almost a Smith steal that time by Bakasa Smith. And Smith gets whistled for the foul. Trying to make something happen for Charlestown. Oh, I'm sorry, they called the foul that time on Snowden. So it looked like that was a foul by Jamila Drawn. So Drawn commits the foul. And Smith gets another possession for Charlestown. Smith driving on the basket, tries a runner, can't get it to go. Ball knocked out of bounds, and that is going to stay with the Charlestown Townies. Three ball on the way from Santiago. Short with the shot. Bakasa Smith coming away with a steal, however, for Charlestown. Tries a runner, can't get it to go. Santiago tries to save it for Charlestown. Diaz comes up with the loose ball. Sakaris getting tied up at the top of the key, and I believe that's going to go back to Charlestown. So Bakasa Smith before forcing the foul on Snowden, this time tying up the basketball to force a jump ball that gives Charlestown another possession. Santiago unable to save the loose ball, so that'll go back to the Snowden Cougars. Dunbar-Lee working hard down low, got a couple of opportunities, but unable to convert inside. Now it's Bakasa Smith. Three ball on the way from Santiago, again short with that shot, as Dunbar-Lee again coming away with another rebound for the Snowden Cougars. Forbes feeding it inside. Diaz unable to hit the layup. And Bakasa Smith again chasing down the loose ball for Charlestown. Tries to feed it down the floor to Santiago. She can't score off the window. Ball knocked out of bounds. That's going to go back to Snowden. Neither team unable to convert a basket here in the third quarter. Naomi Forbes sat for most of that, the beginning of this third quarter. She's now back in for Snowden. We'll see if she tries to force some action for the Cougars. Stolen away by Bakasa Smith. Smith had a clear lane, but she lost the basketball. She's now going to set it back up for Charlestown. Off the up fake, Smith getting tied up inside the paint. And I believe that's another jump ball that will stay with Charlestown. Santiago firing up another three. She's been short the last couple of times. I think if she gets a little more of her legs into it, she might be able to knock down a few. There's Smith again forcing the action, and she's going to get 2 free throws. See if Baksetball Smith can break this scoring drought from Charlestown. They haven't scored since the first quarter. And Smith unable to hit the first. Smith will have one more. Smith knocks down the second free throw as both teams were combined 0 for 7 until that free throw attempt and make by Baksetball Smith. She breaks Charlestown's scoring drought that lasted almost a quarter and a half. It's now 24-7, Snowden on top. Forbes looking for an opening. Forbes all the way to the basket. She is going to get 2 from the charity stripe. So you see the 2 top players for both Charlestown and Snowden. When nothing's going offensively, they force the action, try to get to the free throw line. That's what good players do in the game of basketball. When things aren't necessarily perfect, they're not going your way, you try to get a whistle at some point, get a couple of free throws. I guess it wasn't going to be a couple of free throws. It's going to be a side out of bounds. They called it on the floor. Forbes now going to pull it back out for Snowden. That's a turnover by the Cougars. Here comes Santiago now for Charlestown. Almost gets the ball poked away. I'm sorry, that's Mari Soto on the drive, and Soto gets fouled on her way to the rim. So Mari Soto, the junior, now going to get a couple of free throws. Soto unable to hit the first. Does not get the rim on the second, so that's going to go back to Snowden. Getting close to the end of the third quarter here as Snowden's on top by 17. They haven't scored here in the third quarter. Charlestown just getting the 1 free throw. Deanna Dunbar-Lee trying to carve out some space inside. She finally hits. She's been working hard all night, and Dunbar-Lee finally able to get in the book there with the basket inside. Her first points of the game. Gives Snowden a 19-point lead here in the third quarter. 3 ball on the way and well short that time from Mari Soto, so that'll go back to Snowden. Forbes with a full head of steam gets tied up there underneath the basket, and couldn't tell if they called the foul before the buzzer. I think they did, so I think they're going to get an out-of-bounds play for Charlestown. Last couple of seconds of the third quarter. I'm sorry, that was a shot clock violation. That time, Charlestown knocking down the jumper from the top of the key. It looked like Mari Soto was able to hit that one for her first basket of the game. Cuts the Snowden lead back down to 17 here midway through the third quarter. Excuse me, late in the third quarter. As I mentioned, we can't see the clock right now, but I assume that it's later in the third quarter. Forbes again looking inside. Jumper around the rim and out that time from Nevaeh Evans. Unable to hit the basket. But Snowden comes up with the hoop there to give themselves another 19-point lead here in the third quarter. Three ball hits the top of the backboard. That'll go back to Snowden. Forbes going to reset things here for Snowden. Forbes all the way to the basket, unable to get a clean look. Here comes Smith. Closing seconds of the third quarter. We'll see if Smith can create something here offensively. Smith looking for an opening against this 2-3 zone from Snowden. Santiago now with the top of the key. 3-ball on the way and buried at the buzzer that time. That was when the shot clock ran out and the quarter ran out that time, but knocking down the 3 for Charlestown is Janayla Jones. So she cuts the Snowden lead down to 16 here at the end of the third quarter. So not a lot of action there throughout most of the third quarter, but then both teams trading some baskets towards the end, and then you saw that it was that time it was Janayla Jones knocking down the 3 just before the end of the quarter to cut the lead down to 16, 28-12, Snowden on top as we head into the fourth quarter. Folks, we're bringing this game to you from Charlestown High School. It's week 2 of the BPS High School Basketball season here in this condensed season in 2021. Folks, if you want to follow us on social media, you can certainly go to our Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/GameOfTheWeekBoston. A lot of good stuff up on that site, including links to games that we've already covered, updates on which games we're going to be covering throughout the rest of the season. We also post some news throughout BPS athletics that goes up on that site as well. So make sure you like us on Facebook. You can also go to our website if you want to check out some games from the past. You can go to www.boston.gov/cable. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see a tab for Game of the Week. You click on that, it routes you to our video archive, our video library, and a lot of games from last season and many seasons before are up on that site, so make sure you check that out as well. And finally, folks, you can follow us on Twitter. Go to @BostonCityTV on Twitter to check out our Twitter page. Make sure you like us on Twitter, you follow us on Twitter, and if you want to tweet at us, use the hashtag BostonGOW. If you got any questions about the Game of the Week schedule or what games we're going to be covering and that sort of thing, make sure you ask those questions either on Facebook or Twitter. Just about set to start the fourth quarter here on Game of the Week. Snowden on top, 28-12 over Charlestown. Charlestown didn't scored just 6 points in the first quarter, no points in the second quarter, and was able to come back with 6 there in the third quarter, so not out of it just yet. They're going to need a big fourth quarter to try to come back in this one, but Charlestown certainly not giving up the fight there so far. Meanwhile, for Snowden, they only scored 4 points in that third quarter. Naomi Forbes, their top player, was out for a lot of the first part of that third quarter, so I'm sure that had something to do with it. But also Snowden, not a huge third quarter, so we'll see if they can either pick things up offensively here in the fourth quarter. We'll see if Charlestown can try to make a comeback here in the fourth. Both these teams coming in tonight 0-2 on the season. So both desperate for their first win of the year, especially in this condensed season. You're not sure who's going to be available from game to game with all the reschedules. We had some snow a couple of days ago, so a lot of games had to be moved around. So anytime you can pick up a win in this condensed, sort of unorthodox season, you certainly want to do so. Snowden starts off the fourth quarter with the basketball in a 16-point lead over Charlestown. Runner from Diaz that time, short off the front rim as Williams comes down with the loose ball. Feed it inside that time, layup no good that time from Janayla Jones. She was the one who hit the 3 at the end of the third quarter there for Charlestown. Good cut inside for Caceres. She's unable to hit the layup, though. Sort of got caught in no man's land, but was wide open. Didn't realize it, though, right away. Baksetball sees an opening, squeezes inside, and she's going to get 2 more from the charity stripe. Smith 1 for 4 at the free throw line so far. And she's unable to hit the first. Charlestown right now at 1 for 7 from the charity stripe. Both teams have combined 1 for 11 from the free throw line. Smith no good on the second. Rebound inside. Put back no good that time from Rosario. Three ball on the way from Diaz. Dunbar Lee with another rebound inside for the Snowden Cougars. Block inside that time from Santiago. Dunbar Lee scores off the window. So Deanna Dunbar Lee getting her second basket of the game. Just a sophomore for these Snowden Cougars. Extends their lead to 18 here in the early goings of the fourth quarter. Jones unable to score off the window for Charlestown. Stolen away there by Smith. Baksetball is able to control the loose ball. Smith scores off the backboard that time for Charlestown. So Smith with her first field goal since the first quarter. She's now got 7 points to lead the Charlestown Townies. Trying for another steal. And she's unable to knock it away. Comes up with the loose ball, then gets tripped up. That looks like it's going to be a foul on Dunbar Lee. So once again, the 2-3-2 wide open shot that time, but Jones unable to convert. Good pass from Baksetball Smith at the top of the key. Diaz able to chase it down in the corner. Now she's trapped. She gets it knocked away by Jones. Here comes Santiago now for Charlestown. Santiago unable to convert the layup. Good hustle inside. Baksetball Smith all over the court so far in this one. She forces the jump ball. And that's going to stay with Charlestown. Smith a little banged up after that play. We'll see if she can kind of shake it off. Smith attacking the zone. Tries a runner that time. Zania Johnson coming away with the rebound for Snowden. Cougars feeds it inside to Dunbar Lee. Excellent pass, and the sophomore big is able to convert again, her third basket of the night. Dunbar Lee now with 6 points for the Snowden Cougars. And Charlestown going to take a timeout here midway through the fourth quarter, as Snowden once again with an 18-point lead now over the Charlestown Townies. See Snowden really sharing the basketball well throughout this quarter, with a couple of baskets here in the fourth to extend their lead. And one thing for Snowden, they have a couple of players who can handle the ball. Meanwhile, for Charlestown, it's really just Smith who's able to really be the lead ball handler, and she can't handle the ball and also set herself up for some shots. So Charlestown has to figure out a way to get Smith some more open looks, and then a couple of their players are just having trouble finishing on the offensive end. They are creating some offense, though. We'll see if they can get a couple more open looks, maybe finish some layups inside here in this fourth quarter. You see Coach Bilodeau talking to his squad. It's his third season as the head coach of the Charlestown Girls Basketball program. Meanwhile, on the other side for Snowden, it's Phoebe Pham, the head coach of the Snowden team. This is at least her sixth, if not seventh season with the Snowden Cougars. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Snowden made the state tournament last year, finishing at 14-6 on the season before losing to Malden Catholic in the first round of the state tournament. I'm sure this Snowden team, despite it being a condensed season, wants to try to get back to the state tournament again in 2021. You see Coach Pham, even though her team's got the lead, she's still coaching hard. She knows that if this team wants to get better, they got to continue to finish games. We'll see if Snowden can hang on for their first win of the season. Of course, things are going to be a little bit harder for Snowden here in 2021 after losing one of their top players, Nala Jovan. Just a couple of nights ago, Nala, one of the top players for the Cougars, severely injured her knee. She's going to be out the rest of the season. So certainly tough news for the senior. But Snowden's going to have to make do without her here in 2021. So coming out of the timeout, Charlestown with the basketball, trailing by 18 here in the fourth quarter. Now it's Santiago bringing it up for Charlestown, trying to free up Smith. Baksetball Smith, no good on the three. Dunbar Lee with another rebound for Snowden. She's got to have double-digit rebounds in this one. Dunbar Lee, nice feed inside to Forbes, didn't have an open look. Corner three is nailed that time for Snowden. I think that was Nevaeh Evans knocking down the corner three for the Snowden Cougars. Really good ball movement that time. Smith, corner three. Baksetball unable to hit it. Dunbar Lee corralling the rebound for Snowden. Baksetball Smith coming up with the steal that time as she snuck around one of the post players for Snowden. They give her an open look at the top of the key. She can't hit the three. Rebound comes down to Nevaeh Evans. Good feed inside that time from Forbes as she gets Dunbar Lee inside the paint. So Dunbar Lee scoring her fourth basket of the night. She now has 8 points for the Snowden Cougars. Smith trying the other corner. That time she buries it. Baksetball Smith connecting from long distance. She now has 9 points for the Charlestown Townies, extends their point total to 17. So a 20-point lead here for Snowden in the middle of the fourth quarter. That one goes out of bounds off of Dunbar Lee, so let it go back to Charlestown. Santiago looking for Smith again off the up fake. After hitting the three, Smith drives the paint. She gets fouled on the block. We'll see if it's a shooting foul or on the floor. Looks like it's going to be on the floor. Santiago wide open in the corner. They get it back to Smith, however. Smith tries a little shake and bake, but unable to hang on to the basketball. Jump ball at the top of the key. And that's going to go back to Snowden. That pass stolen away that time from Charlestown. Santiago unable to hang on, but it was knocked out of bounds by Forbes, so that's going to stay with the Townies. Corner three from Smith. Bacasa unable to hit, rebound to Forbes. Forbes going to slow it up. Snowden looking to set up their offense. You know, with one of their top players injured for the rest of the season, Snowden's going to need some of their role players to step up, and Coach Pham certainly getting some other players some time here, because she's probably going to need her entire roster throughout the rest of the season to try to see which combinations, which lineups work for this Snowden Cougars team. That ball goes out of bounds off of Zanya Johnson, so that'll go back to the Charlestown Townies. Smith, corner three, off the back iron. It goes off of Snowden, it'll stay with Charlestown. Substitution for the Townies coming back in for Charlestown is Marie Soto. Corner three, that time from Santiago, is no good. And that's going to stay with the Townies. Snowden unable to hang on to the rebound. Santiago wide open for another three. That time she rattles it home. Elias Santiago now with 5 points for Charlestown. Forbes tries to feed it inside again. Bacasa Smith coming up with the steal. And that is going to do it from Charlestown High School as the Snowden Cougars hang on to defeat the Charlestown Townies 37-20. And of course, it's strange not to see the handshakes at the end of the game, but because of COVID protocols, the teams don't do the handshake lines anymore. So Snowden able to hang on and defeat Charlestown 37-20. Snowden able to continue to hold on to that fourth quarter lead throughout the fourth quarter. Nice job by the Snowden Cougars. I was very impressed tonight with their sophomore big, Deanna Dunbar-Lee. She finished the game with 8 points, but it was really her rebounding and interior passing that really was impressive here tonight. Just a sophomore, and she seemed to have some pretty good court sense out there for just a second-year player. We certainly saw Nairomi Forbes. She had 8 points as well, one of the top players for Snowden. We knew that going in. She actually had a couple of baskets that she wasn't able to make, but overall, nice job for her tonight. But also, the player of the game was probably Chantel Sakara. She did it for most of the first half, but Caceres was able to compile 14 points for Snowden, mostly in the first half. She knocked down a couple of threes. She also brought the ball up for the Snowden Cougars, so she did a nice job there as well. Meanwhile, for Charlestown, we saw Bacasa Smith, one of the top players in the game. She finished the night with 10 points to lead Charlestown. Elias Santiago had 5 points for Charlestown, and of course, Janela Jones knocked down a three towards the end of the third quarter, and then also Mari Soto with a basket for the Charlestown Townies as well. So you see Snowden, they got their point guard. Now they have a young big that looks like she's going to contribute a lot for this team. Snowden picks up their first win of the season. Meanwhile, Charlestown then drops to 0-3 on the year. So certainly a big win for Snowden. We'll see if that helps them snowball a couple of wins throughout this condensed basketball season. But folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Game of the Week. If you want to follow us on social media, you can certainly go to our Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/GameOfTheWeekBoston. A lot of good stuff up on that site. You can go to our website to check out older games that we've covered. Go to www.boston.gov/cable for a lot of different games you can check out. You can go to the bottom of the page, click on Game of the Week. It'll bring you to our video library to find those old games that we've covered in the past few years. And then finally, you can also follow us on Twitter at Boston City TV. And if you want to tweet at us, make sure you use the hashtag BostonGOW. Once again, folks, thank you so much for tuning in tonight to watch another live stream of BPS High School Basketball. Looks a little different this year, but we're still getting the games in. We're still getting some of these games out to you, so we appreciate you checking us out and viewing these games that we are covering. I'm Pat Flaherty. I'll see you next time here on Game of the Week. Folks, stay safe. Have a good night, everybody.